Today's episode of Murder in the Rain contains graphic descriptions of violence against children. Listener discretion advised.
There are nearly 20,000 murders annually in the United States.
Perhaps it's the weather, but the Pacific Northwest has become the notorious home of serial killers and bizarre crimes.
We're here to discuss those murders,
To try to understand the motives,
respect and remember the victims.
and explore the humanity of it all.
I'm Emily Rowney.
And I'm Alicia Holland.
And this is Murder in the Rain. Today's case is taking us back up north to a land of notorious murders and weather that has inspired vampire novels and grunge music alike. I'm talking about King County, Washington. We're going to a town just on the outskirts of Seattle called Carnation.
You used to live up there.
Not in Carnation, but outside of Seattle.
What in Carnation?
Mhm.
Where did you live, though?
I lived in West Seattle.
That's right.
Most families who celebrate Christmas do so with presents, eggnog, and perhaps a drunk uncle or two, but it usually brings us feelings of love and holiday cheer. But in 2007, Christmas in Carnation brought devastation and feelings of great sorrow for the loss of an entire family. 'Twas the day after Christmas, and Linda Teely was growing more and more concerned by the minute. Her best friend Judy was late to their shift at the Carnation post office on December 26th, 2007. This wasn't like Judy. Maybe on occasion she was a few minutes late, but that was incredibly rare, and she was already pushing 45 minutes late. Linda made multiple calls to Judy, but failed to get a hold of her. Wanting to put her worries at bay, Linda decides to leave work and go check on Judy at her home. Within moments of reaching the front door, she started to panic. The door was unlocked, something that Judy would have never forgotten. Her home was always locked. She calls Judy's name through the cracked front door. No reply. She opens the door further and calls her name again, and as she pokes her head through the opening, what she sees shakes her to her core. There on the floor are the feet of an unmoving man. Her thoughts turn to carbon monoxide poisoning, so she steps in to attempt to pull him out through the door. But then she realizes he's been shot in the head. She drops her hands and takes the scene in more carefully. As she stares a bit longer, she realizes it isn't just a man. There's a woman and a child, all of which appear to be dead.
911?
There's been a murder. There's 3 people dead that I can see right now.
Inside?
I just came up. She works with me.
Inside a house?
Yes.
What do you see?
There's a baby and a man and a woman, and she's my best friend.
This 911 call is long, about 32 minutes long. The entire duration of the call, Linda stood inside the home of her best friend next to the bodies. One of the bodies she fully believed was Judy.
Wait, 32 minutes?
Oh,
They
yeah.
live in the boons?
A little bit. She didn't have a cell phone, so she was forced to stand there using the landline.
Okay.
So she's basically in this house waiting. They are kind of out on the outskirts of town, so it's going to take a while. But really, it's because she had to stay on the phone with the cops.
Gotcha.
While on the call with the operator, Linda, despite her fear that the murderer is still on the property and the devastation that her best friend is dead, is able to give an abundance of information. During the call, Linda details further why she was there checking on her friend and what she saw. She describes who she thinks the bodies belong to: her friend, her best friend's son, and his baby son. The dispatcher asks her to remain in the room and not to touch anything that would disturb the crime scene, except to touch the body to see if there is any warmth. Linda does this and replies that they are cold, and this, of course, indicates that the deaths happened some time ago. She also tells the 911 dispatcher about who lives on the property. Wayne and Judy live in the main house, and their daughter Michelle and her boyfriend live in a trailer on the outskirts of the property. Linda verbalizes there in the 911 call that she has suspicions of Judy's daughter Michelle. She thinks she may have had something to do with this murder, and the main reasons are because Judy had very recently told her that the daughter was really angry at them because her and her husband decided they needed to start paying rent and utilities for living on the trailer. She'd been living there for months, rent-free.
Okay. And so the son and grandson would have been visiting for
They're
the
visiting,
holidays.
exactly.
Okay.
Secondly, when Linda arrived on the property, the gate was locked. So the house is on a private property. There is a gate. You go in, you go up a long driveway. So she's saying when she got there, the gate was locked. She has a key to get in,
Right.
but not very many people do.
Right.
So
it
that
would have
was
been from an inside job.
right. So somebody would have had to lock it to leave. So she's like, I'm either here with the murderer or maybe it's someone who knows this family.
Okay.
The gate is locked, which makes me wonder if her daughter did it, which is scary, because then I might be up here with the murderer.
Within the hour, authorities arrived to the small home in Carnation, Washington, to investigate the scene described on the 911 call. Within steps of the door, 4 bodies are located. Scott Anderson, Judy's son, his wife Erica, their 3-year-old son Nathan, and hidden underneath Erica's body is their 5-year-old daughter Olivia. The cause of death for the entire family is the same: gunshot wounds. In a few more hours, the list of victims grow by 2. Hidden in a shed behind the house are the bodies of Wayne and Judy Anderson. They too had been shot. What happened that Christmas? When police arrive, Judy's friend Linda cautiously walks out of the home to meet them. As she does so, she scans the property and sees police everywhere, poking out from behind trees with automatic weapons trained on her. They tell her not to make any sudden movements, but to continue walking towards them. Linda explains to the sheriff that the family inside was not her best friend Judy, as she previously thought, but maybe it was her husband. She wasn't sure. She was just totally in shock. She's also really scared for her friend Judy, that maybe that body wasn't Judy, but she doesn't know where she is. She thinks she's somewhere on the property. There is blood everywhere and also multiple dead bodies. So while the police wait for detectives from Seattle, they question Linda about everything she knew. Once the detectives arrive, they also question her, and then they decide to just send her home. They're like, okay, you can go now. And she's just kind of shocked by that. But, what else can she do?
Yeah.
She's given so much information for them. They already have suspects. So she goes home. So thanks to the information Linda gave to the 911 dispatcher, police learn very quickly that there are 2 people on the property that they don't have dead in the house. So they want to find them immediately. Not much later, lo and behold, Michelle Anderson and her boyfriend Joseph pull up onto the property. They tell police, oh, we've been on a road trip going to Vegas. We were going to get married. But after we got lost, we decided to just come back home for Christmas. The police suspicion of this couple, thanks to Linda's information, is now confirmed because they show up and they never once ask if Michelle's parents are okay. So there are police everywhere. There's obviously a crime scene, and not once do they inquire.
They aren't running
where
up
are
going,
my
oh
parents?
my God, is everyone okay? What's
Exactly.
going on? It's just like, oh, hey.
Yeah, a normal behavior would be, where's my mom? Where's my dad? Are they okay? Now, it might be a small town, but the police were not slow to pick up on the signs that these 2 were involved in these shooting deaths of this family. They quickly separate the pair and begin questioning them as to what happened. It's clear they had worked together to kill Michelle's entire family.
Gross.
While separated and questioned, both Michelle and Joseph sung like canaries, or I guess like Christmas carolers.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
They sang like turtle doves.
I couldn't help myself. With the slightest of pressure, they both detailed what happened the night before Christmas. Michelle and Joseph drove up the family drive to her parents' home from their trailer on Christmas Eve day. Her parents were preparing for an evening with their beloved family. Judy was wrapping presents while a roast cooked in the oven, and Wayne was tidying up, eagerly awaiting the arrival of their grandchildren. The first to arrive for Christmas dinner was their daughter and her boyfriend, but instead of an armful of presents, they were armed with guns. The original plan was for Joseph to distract Judy while Michelle targeted her father. As Michelle lifted her gun to fire at her father, she missed. Joseph then runs to her aid and shoots her father in the head. Judy is now screaming after witnessing her husband's murder, and Joseph turns to shoot her too. Judy came screaming after witnessing her husband's murder, and then Joseph turns to shoot at her. After firing 1 bullet into Judy, he stops to apologize and then shoots her again. She's now dead.
Your brain couldn't even process that. Like,
Oh,
you're
yeah, it
standing
happened,
there
like-
making Christmas dinner and your own daughter walks in.
And
with
I
a gun.
believe
like,
they-
you couldn't your brain can't.
They
fathom that.
detailed it happened within minutes. Like
Right.
and we'll get to them, but it was very fast. So the couple then drags the lifeless bodies of the people who gave Michelle life out to the back of the house to hide them in a small storage shed in the yard. They cover the bodies with a piece of old carpet and return to the house to wipe up the blood with towels and blankets, which they then burned in the backyard. And then they waited. 2.5 hours later, Michelle's brother Scott arrives with his wife Erica and their 2 young children. As the family settles in, Erica kicks off her shoes and they both sit in the living room. Kids are playing. Scott asks Michelle where mom and dad are, and she makes a reference to them being in the bathroom, but immediately dives into confronting her brother. She's basically screaming at him across the room about how unhappy she is that he's borrowed so much money from her and never repaid. She has told police that he's borrowed over the years about $40,000 from her. I'm guessing that she wasn't paying in rent and utilities
Right.
and being an adult because she was living off of her parents.
Right.
So as she's yelling at him, she has a gun hidden in her sweatshirt and she goes to pull it out. Scott sees it and just dives at her to try to get the gun out of her hand. And as he's trying to wrestle it away, she shoots him and it totally incapacitates him. He was not dead, but she shot him through the face and he fell to the floor and slowly bled to death while I'm guessing was aware of what was going on around him. Erica, who witnessed this, was hiding behind the couch, holding her young children and begging them not to do this. Michelle turned to Erica and fired a shot at her, but missed. More shots were fired. Michelle detailed that she thought she had hit Erica at least twice, maybe 4 times. Later, during autopsy, it was discovered that she had been shot a total of 6 times and fought through the entire, every gunshot. Erica, unlike Scott, continued to scream, tried to crawl away, even though she had multiple bullet wounds. She was able to get to the phone and dial 911, but it was incredibly short-lived as Joseph grabbed the phone from her hand, took out the batteries because it was a cordless phone, took out the batteries and threw them on the floor.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
In that call, you can hear crying and a scream, and perhaps if you listen closely, some talking. After receiving the hang-up call, police were able to locate the home where it took place because it was a landline. They drive out to the scene, and what do they find? A locked gate. And they do not go in. They can't get in through a locked gate. They did try calling back to the house. Nobody answered, so they went away. Joseph tells police that he allowed Erica, who was, quote, barely alive, to cuddle with her kids before he ended her life. He shot her in the head right before her children's eyes. He claims that her last words were, "No, not the kids," words that some can hear in the background of that brief 911 call made on Christmas Eve. 5-year-old Olivia was crawling along the floor while she bled out and tried to hide beneath her mother's body. The gun was unjammed at this point, and he then shot her in the back of the head. Lastly, there was 3-year-old Nathan, who still wore diapers. While he pointed the gun to Nathan's head, the little boy raised his hand, and there in his palm were the phone batteries. Joseph then shot Nathan through the side of his head, where it came out the other side directly into his mother's chest. This is what is described in the trial as kissing wounds. Little Nathan had been clutching his mother, as I'm sure he knew even as a baby that his final moments were near. After the massacre, the couple drove to the Stillaguamish River and tossed their guns into it. They left the bodies in the home where the best friend of Michelle's mother would be traumatized to find them 2 days later. What drove a young 20-something couple to murder an entire family, 3 generations of people who loved Michelle? During the trials of Michelle and Joseph, who were both arrested for aggravated murder, many things came to light. Mainly that dysfunction, selfishness, control, and greed were the perfect ingredients to end the lives of a family of 6. Joe and Michelle met in an online gaming group in the early 2000s. Crippling anxiety about a speech impediment led Joseph to find great joy in the online world, where instead of his spoken voice, he could write. He was rather active in the gaming group, and when Michelle joined, Joe was quick to make her feel welcome. At the time, Joseph lived in North Carolina, and after a very short online courtship, he moved to the Northwest to continue their relationship IRL.
Again, red flag.
Yep.
Hi, we haven't met, but let me drop everything.
And
move
I
across the
don't talk
country.
about this, but they do have like a core little group of online gamers that they must have all done the same game together. So
Right.
they were pretty close. None of them had met in real life except for her and Joe. Neighbors who knew Michelle and Joseph described them as misfits that didn't really fit in and kept to themselves. In fact, one neighbor noted that Michelle actually described herself as a black sheep. In addition to not fitting in, neighbors also detailed that the relationship between the two was pretty much toxic, and it was not uncommon to hear them screaming at each other. Michelle would often berate Joseph for not having a job. She'd call him a loser. And as one witness in Joe McEnroe's trial said, their relationship was, quote, marriage made in hell. The dynamic between this couple led many people to believe that Michelle could control Joseph. In fact, Joseph's argument in trial is to blame Michelle.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have thought that it would have been the other way if this boy showed up out from the interwebs and talked me into killing my family.
I mean, I think she was like, you come be in my life.
Right.
You live with me. He claimed she controlled him. He would have to help her and that he would do anything for her. But Michelle told police she was also angry. Years of resentment towards her brother about money, her family always siding with him on everything, and to quote her, everyone stepping on her had finally driven her to want to kill them. She told police that her rage had grown over the years of just family conflict, and the 2 weeks prior to Christmas, she had actually come up with the plan that if they didn't start showing her respect by Christmas Eve, she would kill them. While she did point the fingers at Joseph multiple times, she ultimately told police they both shot people. She wasn't going to say who did what, but it was her fault that she dragged Joseph into this family quarrel.
The amount of energy it takes to have that much hate and to like, it's one thing to be like, okay, we're going to do this. And then like you shoot your dad, but you're still going to go. And then you shoot your mom.
The
and then you
kids.
wait 2.5 hours. You don't call your brother and say,
Yeah.
mom's really sick, come tomorrow. Or
I imagine just this rage energy radiating off of each other. And the fact that what's mind blowing is the fact that she's this like well off white girl living off of her parents.
Mhm.
What do you got to be mad about?
Right.
Your brother didn't pay you back?
Right.
It's just gross.
It's yeah, I can't comprehend it's one thing to pull through with it the first time, but then to have that time, like that to me is the
Yeah.
creepiest part of the whole thing is you had 2.5 hours
to sit
and
there.
you knew like those babies were coming and you waited.
Yep,
That is so grotesque.
it is. Joseph McEnroe tried several times to plead guilty. He said this was to avoid a trial, which was sure to be expensive and painful for everyone. Prosecution, however, denied any request to plea deal, and they said he was only trying to work out a lenient deal and avoid the death penalty. So he did go to trial. Joseph takes the stand to try and paint a picture of a childhood that positioned him as an easy target for a controlling girlfriend. He describes being abused by his mother and her revolving door of boyfriends. He talks about his mental illness and his obsession he developed for his girlfriend, Michelle. He wanted to show the jury that he would have done anything she told him to do. He would do her bidding, and ultimately, he would kill her family under her orders.
Please.
The Anderson family thought this was all a load of crap, that he was playing up his childhood and his mental illness to the court and to the jury to outline that he was not a case for the death penalty. There are hours and hours of court tapings on YouTube for Joseph's trial. And the one thing that I found really interesting is that even though Joseph cited anger about not being a favorite as motive for Michelle, a large portion of the trial focused on money being the actual motive. Wayne, Michelle's father, had millions in assets across bank accounts and property holdings. Prosecution questioned whether Joseph was interested in money and wasn't actually driven by Michelle's control, insinuating that the murder of the entire family was just to leave Michelle as the sole heir of the family's wealth, which would benefit them both.
So they're idiots thinking that they would get away with that.
Yeah. This is like the fastest open and shut case, really. I mean, it took years to go to court.
Right.
But it was like same day that
Duh.
they found the bodies. They knew these two did it.
Dingbats.
The jury listened intently to both sides of the court, and in the end, they found that the state did not meet the burden of proof for the prosecutor's desire for the death penalty. So they alternatively proposed life in prison without the possibility of parole as punishment for these 6 counts of murder. Maybe Joe was able to help them along with his colorful description of himself, but I will note that 2/3 of the jury actually did feel they should proceed with the death penalty. Joseph, while adamant that there was no excuse for what he did, wanted to explain to the court why he did it.
She had a lot of anger and a lot of hatred, and she thought that the best way to act on that would be to go off and kill people. I was really her attack dog when this stuff happened. I did because I thought I had to. And yeah, I know that's not a very good excuse, but I'm not trying to excuse myself. I'm just trying to explain my actions.
He also explains that if he could do something to bring them back, he would.
I've also taken from them from these people who had done nothing but shown me kindness and goodness. And if I thought that hurting myself or killing myself or doing anything, that anything I could do would go off and bring back these people or ameliorate the pain or something, I would.
Joseph now finds himself among the ranks of much of Washington's garbage at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla, Washington. 38 witnesses were called by prosecution to testify in Michelle Anderson's trial, but there was not a single one called to speak on her behalf. Michelle, though not the woman that pulled the trigger in every death, was painted as the mastermind that dreamt it all up. She was convicted of 6 counts of aggravated murder and ultimately sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences for her role in the murder of her entire family. Michelle mostly hung her head and avoided eye contact with the room during her sentencing. Her older half-sister, Mary Anderson, tearfully spoke to her from the heart, wishing her to find redemption in Jesus, telling her she loved her, and reminding her that her family had loved her very much. Then Michelle did cry, and though she made eye contact with her family and nodded along, she still refused to speak to the court when given the opportunity. Her lawyer spoke on her behalf, claiming that she did regret it and, quote, Miss Anderson is very, very remorseful.
Oh, please. She's a coward across the board.
Rather than berate the defendant while she received her sentence, the judge took the time to address the victim's family and friends, as well as the jury, commending everyone for their contributions to the trial and recognizing that they are what he calls secondary victims. He outlined that the family will not be forgotten and that their death was a culmination of the terrible dynamic between these 2 sick individuals.
You have all suffered tremendous losses. There are no words that are adequate to even attempt to address what you've been through. Fortunately, this lengthy chapter of your waking nightmare is almost over. I sincerely hope that when you leave here today, you will never have occasion to visit this courthouse again for reasons related to these murders. I also hope that the healing that has been delayed by this process can now begin in earnest and that happier times will prevail.
From McEnroe's court audio, I can see why a lot of people question him and wonder if he's acting. He's very dramatic. He flies from one emotion to the next, but there are glimpses here and there where you can see that Michelle did have control over him. And even from jail, she continues to manipulate people. While in jail, Michelle needed someone to turn to, and she knew who she could count on. Another guy, an online gamer called Stephen LePage, was in love with her. Just like McEnroe, he met Michelle online and he had never actually met her in person. He did, however, profess his love for her in a letter, and he was more than happy to believe Michelle and hang on her every word, even when she calls him from prison. She asks him for help. What she wants him to do is call someone on her behalf. And in exchange, she's going to give him money so he can come visit her in jail. Okay, so she needs new lawyers. So what she tells Steven is, I have this number for this media outlet. I need you to call them because they won't take my calls. You call them, get them to send their lawyers to me by this date and get them to sign me on. So because I want to sue my current lawyer. And then once you do that, they can get me access to my bank account and I can give you $2,000 to come visit me. So he's like, yeah, of course. Sure.
Boy, she's finding all the smart ones.
Yeah. So she's claiming that this media outlet, she will give them like a once in a lifetime interview. She will tell them everything. And that she'd kind of already had this conversation with them. But lo and behold, it never happens. You hear him say to Michelle, you actually remember my whole name? Wow. He is awed by the fact that she would remember him. It's like she has control over these men. Yeah. So it makes you
Gotta
think
get out of the house more.
It makes you think maybe Joseph is telling the truth. That he's super awkward.
Oh, I'm sure there's definitely elements to that. Like, I have no doubt of just like, okay, I don't have a lot of social skills because I had this speech impediment and live in this gaming world where it's brought me this great community and someone that is loving me for me. And yeah, all of that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It's very Gypsy Rose, you know, like got talked in. Next thing you know, you're shooting the family. So it's like, not that I get that, but yes, I totally think that there are aspects of that that are legitimate.
I still think though, a normal person would have snapped out of it after the first murder, after the second, but getting to the children, then
you're so deep. It's like your brain is just...
Well, and he says, I mean, so something some people get stuck on about this case is, of course, the senseless murder of 2 children. And I mean, the whole thing is senseless, obviously, but a mother sitting there begging for the lives of her young children who probably, with a little bit of therapy, might not even remember it in too much detail. I mean,
they would be.
The youngest one might be okay. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but when he's asked about it, Joseph says that he wanted to spare them the pain of living with the knowledge that their parents were killed. And I think he also made references to his childhood being so traumatic that he just wanted to spare them in general. But I mean, a lot of people get hung up on that and the fact that the mom's last words were no, not the kids, and that you can hear it in the call. I couldn't personally hear it, but in court they played it and multiple people said they heard it.
Does he ever talk about what his mental illness is?
Well, he says when he was younger, no, they just think it's like some sort of social disorder. But he talks about when he was younger, hearing demons and them telling him to do bad things, hearing a guardian angel. He talks in depth about a guardian angel who he had full-on conversations with. So he's definitely got some things happening.
Pretty interesting, too, if he was like spectrum-y, you know. Which would make sense with the
he definitely
social aspect.
But then there are witnesses who did come to speak on his behalf about he being, you know, a normal, hardworking young kid. His boss said, you know, he felt like he was basically his father. He was never late. He was always a hard worker. You know, there's multiple facets to everyone's personality, but definitely something was off. And then Michelle must have found him at the right time to do her bidding.
Tapped into that.
Yeah, definitely. In the end, both of these monsters are locked up behind bars for life, both guilty of the aggravated murder of 6 innocent people. This case is just so frustrating to everyone because the motive is stupid. Like, money, I guess I can understand, but if she is serious that her anger over not being the golden child and her brother owing her money, I mean, it's just garbage.
Yeah, it's gross.
Total garbage.
The whole thing's super gross.
Cool.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Enjoy your time with your family.
How about we listen to my dog scratch his neck?
That's always comforting and Christmas.
It sounds like
Christmas.
It sounds like he has a tin can around his neck.
We can bring him caroling. Hark of the bells, sweet silver bells.
And now a brief word from our sponsors. And if you find these ads annoying, you could just sign up for Patreon and not have to listen to any of them.
If there's one thing I've learned as an adult, it's that life can be hard. Whether you're dealing with stress and anxiety, trauma, or mourning the loss of a loved one, it could be helpful to talk to someone about what's going on in your life.
Going to a doctor's office to meet with someone weekly can disrupt your schedule and can be so expensive. Why not make a choice to try something convenient and affordable? Try BetterHelp.
With BetterHelp, you can get help on your own time and at your own pace. Scheduling a session with your counselor is easy and can be done via chat, text, phone, or even a video session to talk face-to-face.
BetterHelp has over 3,000 counselors who are licensed professionals with expertise in multiple topics. You can select what matters to you and be matched up with a counselor that fits your needs.
Listen, we all have something we're going through, so why not get started with BetterHelp today? To make it even more affordable, Murder in the Rain listeners get 10% off their first month with discount code RAIN.
Go to betterhelp.com/rain to fill out a questionnaire to help you get matched with a counselor that you'll love. That's betterhelp.com/rain, RAIN. BetterHelp, because you deserve to be happy. When it came time for me to find and write my Christmas story, I knew I didn't want to do anything that was too heavy because that's Emily's territory to bum everyone out. Because it is the holidays, wanted to keep it a little light. But I did know exactly what story I wanted to tell. Knowing basically only the headlines of this crime, I thought it would take maybe 10 whole minutes to walk through them. Little did I know that not only were there many more details behind the headlines, but my opinion on how the entire saga went down would totally change. And yours might as well. Today, I'm going to talk about the almost bombing of the Portland Christmas tree lighting of 2010 and how it nearly led to the death of 25,000 carolers, my immediate family, and myself. Before I get into it, I owe this story to a fantastic and incredibly thorough BuzzFeed article by Nicholas Medina Mora and Mike Hayes. They went through the huge public record and 2,700 pages of testimony to break down this case into something that could be easily digested. So if you'd like to read even more information about this story, we'll have the link to that and the public record and all sources at murderintherain.com. On August 11th, 1991, Mohammed Osan Mohammed was born in Somalia. Soon after his birth, his family fled due to the civil war. Mohammed's father left for America, while Mohammed and his mother ended up in a Kenyan refugee camp. Then, in 1993, the family was reunited. His father was, quote, grateful to America as they settled in Hillsboro, a city 17 miles to the west of Portland, where his dad had been working at Intel. A few years later, they made their way from Hillsboro to Beaverton, further east, where Mohammed began to flourish in school. He was popular, well-liked, and into things that most middle and high schoolers are into: sports, Harry Potter, hanging with friends. As high school began, Muhammad became more involved in his Muslim religion, becoming a bit of a beacon of guidance to his friends if they were to ever go off course. He wasn't perfect, though. As he got older, he would leave school and drink at a friend's house from time to time. This wasn't a huge surprise to his parents, who, after all those years, miles, and 3 children, were now going through a divorce. Muhammad found solace at his local mosque, attending more frequently and following the teachings of Muhammad Carrier. Carrier's teachings and expectations were extreme to most, leading Muhammad's friends and family to actually change mosques. It was during his time at this mosque that Muhammad had a fateful meeting. 18-year-old exchange student Amro al-Ali from Saudi Arabia was known for being all bark and no bite. He liked to talk about jihad, but was never considered to be a real threat to anyone's safety. However, he did introduce Muhammad to extremist websites, and Muhammad became immersed, even submitting writings. This idea of being heard, understood, and supported wasn't really surprising. A boy that age, struggling with the divorce of his parents, losing the sense of family he had always known. Then on August 31st, 2009, Muhammad received an email that would change the course of his life. His friend Al-Ali sent him an email about a school in Yemen. Again, the idea of control and escape seemed too good to be true for the distraught teen, and he told his parents that he would be leaving the country. His parents were terrified. They knew all too well the dangers of the war-torn countries and what could happen to men like their son, how quickly he could get wrapped up into something bigger than himself, something that could take his life. So his father, in crisis, did the only thing he could think of to do. He called the FBI and asked them to help in keeping his son from going. Later, while his mom drove to a nearby playground and found Muhammad, his father was meeting with an FBI agent. This wasn't a run-of-the-mill agent. This was an agent with the terrorism division. When informed of that, Muhammad's father asked, "Are you alluding that we are Muslim and my son's name is Muhammad? There's no terrorism here. We're citizens." After their conversation and his father's pleas for help, it was decided that nothing could really be done as Muhammad was 18 and therefore an adult. Muhammad's father, perhaps hoping to help or get more help, forwarded the email about the school in Yemen to the agent that he had met with. The agent then ran Muhammad's email through an FBI database and found that he was connected to someone that was already on the FBI's radar, a man named Khan, the man that ran the websites that Muhammad had written for. He was actually later killed in a drone attack along with other al-Qaeda members. In that moment, a case was opened against Muhammad. In the start of 2009, Muhammad moved to Corvallis, a dumpy little college town home to the
dare
Beavers.
you? Dumpy.
I had to do it.
Rude.
A lovely little college town home to the Beavers, and he started to attend classes at...
Oregon State.
Yeah, I always mix it up. At Oregon State. He moved into a dorm with a few other friends, and he started to settle into college life. The dorm became a focal point for the group's parties and hangouts. Dating and drinking were all-consuming to the group of friends. At this time, and unbeknownst to Muhammad, his emails were already being tracked, and he had an agent that was actually following him. They noted and spoke upon it at trial that at this point, he appeared to be totally disengaged from his, quote, radical thinking, which was connected to Khan, and that, it was pretty clear he would be talking religion one moment, but then turn around and be talking about and or having sex, drinking, or dating.
Those are the types of things I was emailing about in college.
Exactly. The party came to a screeching halt when, the day after Halloween 2009, 2 police officers arrived at Muhammad's dorm to discuss the night before. During the Halloween rager that had been happening, an intoxicated Muhammad made the mistake of taking a very intoxicated girl back to his dorm and, in front of everyone, began to have sex with her in the top bunk
Oh, dear.
of the bunk beds. Well, everyone then left. Like, it didn't become a show. They were like, hello? Oh, no, we'll...
My friends would have been a little more rude, I think.
Probably. So that girl then filed a complaint that she had actually been drugged and assaulted.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Eventually, no charges were filed, but the questioning, polygraph, and knowledge that he had made such a horrible mistake really rattled him. He then posted on a blog, quote, "I swear by Allah, I have become so lost, and I want so badly to be in a Muslim land. I keep telling myself that if I lived in a Muslim land, I would become so pious. Being in university and living on campus hasn't helped me too much either. I have fallen into so many things, i.e. alcohol and women. All I need is some soft words to help my heart and supporting advice." Soon after his plea for support and guidance, an undercover FBI agent started sending him emails that spoke on religion. At one point, the undercover agent started pointing out instances in which terrorist attacks occurred, but spoke on them in a supporting way. Muhammad...
Wait a minute. An FBI agent was doing that?
Uh-huh.
Is that their typical method?
Well, I don't know about typical, but
That's screwed up.
this is the tip of the iceberg,
Oh,
my
boy.
friend. Muhammad actually warned the agent to be careful about what he was writing, especially being online. Then, in early December 2009, Muhammad's old friend Al-Ali emailed him again. He claimed to have been in Mecca, but the FBI, all sorts of up in Muhammad's business, traced that email to Pakistan. Due to his activities and location, Al-Ali raised red flags within the FBI, and they were sure this was a way of recruiting Muhammad. Again, nothing came from Muhammad's and Al-Ali's interactions, though. In spring of 2010, Muhammad had a family member invite him to Alaska for a while to work on a fishing boat. He agreed, and the family was supportive, as it was clear that he was needing more structure in his life, and this change could do him some good. He had his ticket and his bags packed when he attempted to go through security at PDX. Instead of going to Alaska to get his life on track, he was taken aside by agents who, as of a week prior, were in a full-scale investigation of Muhammad, and they had already put him on the do not fly list.
And he hadn't done anything.
Correct. But they decided that they were going to pursue
So
the
they're
investigation.
like molding him into the stereotype.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. 9 days after the airport incident, a different undercover agent who went by the name Yosef reached out to Muhammad. He sent emails about getting him involved in basically the brotherhood and inquired about what he would be willing to do. Muhammad didn't bite. After multiple messages, he finally gave in and invited him to a service at his mosque. The agent declined his offer, but instead asked to meet downtown. Not really buying the emails, Muhammad started to inquire about how this person had his email and how they knew Al-Ali, who they had claimed to have as a mutual friend, which is very much, we've all been there where you get like those Facebook friend requests and they're like, let's be friends. You're like, who? What? How do you know this person? And that's basically what this FBI agent was doing. When questioned and knowing that they were totally full of crap and had no way of proving how they were connected to Muhammad, the agents invented an organization claiming that a brother from Oregon sent them to Muhammad. Muhammad then took the bait and agreed to meet with them at the end of July of 2010. Yosef, the undercover agent, and Muhammad met on July 30th. They talked about, well, we don't exactly know. Because, whoopsies, the agent forgot to put in new batteries in their recording device. Darn it. Because it's not like when you've had an operation already going on someone and you're going in to start this sting and actually meet the person you're targeting, that you would have fresh batteries in your recorder.
I don't like this at all.
Mm-mm. So they meet and they talk, and according to the agent, about what Muhammad has done to be a good Muslim. He shares his poems he's written for the websites, but that's pretty much it. At this point, those pesky batteries play a huge role in what Muhammad's intentions were when he met with the agent. According to Yusuf, he gave Muhammad 5 options for being a good Muslim: to pray 5 times a day, train as a doctor and go overseas, which he obviously couldn't do as he was on the no-fly list, to donate money to the cause, to become operational, or become a martyr. Without proof, the agent later testified in court that Muhammad chose operational, which to him meant filling a car up with explosives, finding a target, and blowing it up. With this information, the agent suggested that Muhammad research ideal locations for said car bomb, and they would talk about it the next time they met.
I am just mind-boggled by this.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
You know when we talked about before being able to see DNA and kind of the worry that maybe people would start to presume somebody's going to be a bad person and do something.
Oh, uh-huh.
I feel like that's what's happening.
Yes. Yeah. And to say like, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to record. But no, he totally on his own wanted to do a car bomb. I definitely didn't plant that idea or anything. Yeah.
Wow.
It's messy.
This is gross.
2 weeks later, the second agent, going by the name Hussein, met with both Yusuf and Muhammad in a hotel room. This time, it was filled with surveillance cameras and recorders with batteries. While discussing plans, Muhammad stated he wanted a car and explosives. Muhammad makes it clear what his plan is with said vehicle. Quote, "The U.S. is losing the war, so they have resorted to intentionally killing civilians, and, God, the glorified, the exalted, said in the Quran that if they kill your women and children intentionally, then you are allowed to do the same to them." Yusuf touched back on the topic of a target. That's when Muhammad brought up his idea, the annual Christmas tree lighting at Pioneer Square. As per the transcript provided by the FBI, during this conversation, so this is in the hotel when they're meeting to kind of put plans together. Yusuf, and this is what you want in your heart? You know there are going to be a lot of children there. Muhammad, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Yusuf, for kids? Muhammad, no, just for a huge mass. For them to be attacked on their own element with their families, celebrating the holidays. When asked if Muhammad was willing to die during this event, he responded, yeah, I don't mind that. If I wasn't in it, then they'll look for me. Yusuf, and you're not worried? Muhammad, if you're going to paradise, then you don't have to worry, right? Yes, I will push the button. Yusuf, Allah is looking at you right now. Now, this is where, although I've been pointing out that perhaps this was entrapment and all of this only came to be because Muhammad was pushed by the FBI, that's not me excusing anything, because he's still a monster, as shown as his response, quote, "You know what I like, what makes me happy, you know what I will like to see, when I see the enemy of Allah and their bodies are torn everywhere." The agents then started covering their own asses by saying over and over that this was all Muhammad's choice and that he could back out at any time. As the months went on, the group of men continually met. This is when the idea of entrapment comes back into play. Entrapment, according to justice.gov, is defined as government agents may not originate a criminal design, implant in an innocent person's mind the disposition to commit a criminal act, and then induce commission of the crime so that the government may prosecute. So it does get a little sticky when agents Yusuf and Hussein start to give Muhammad tasks to bring his plan to fruition. They had him buy parts for the bomb, rent a storage unit to build it in, and to scope out the best parking spots for the detonation, things he wouldn't have known to have done on his own. The agents set Muhammad up with an apartment and made plans for him to get out of the country as soon as the bomb went off, as they didn't want him killing himself before they could bring him to trial. Then, Thanksgiving. Muhammad had a Friendsgiving and seemed jovial, contrary to his behavior and how it had been the few weeks and months leading up to the big holiday. When talking to a friend about his plans for that Friday, the friend told Muhammad that he was planning on going to the tree lighting. Muhammad told him to stay home. Then, November 26th, 2010. My family and I all made our way downtown. We, as we are with almost everything, were running late. My dad dropped us off as he went to go find a parking spot, while my mom, brother, his then girlfriend, now wife, made our way into the square. As always, Mom brought an air pot of hot chocolate, and we started to pour ourselves cups, while the choirs, led by Pink Martini, started to lead us through Christmas carols. This is one of my favorite nights of the year, and my family goes every year. It was as crowded and busy as always. Little did we know that on the same corner we were standing, Muhammad was parking the white van that he and the agents had been working on. It was full of 55-gallon drums of fertilizer, reeked of diesel fuel, and had a phone connected as the detonator. Yusuf was dropped at a train station before Hussein and Muhammad went to a nearby parking structure to detonate the bomb in hopes of killing all of the attendees. Muhammad pushed the button on the phone, and nothing happened. At the recommendation of Hussein, he got out of the car and he tried again. And that was when he was swarmed by agents and put under arrest. 3 years later, his 2-week trial began. His court-appointed attorneys specialized in terrorism cases. Using the entrapment defense, the argument came down to the fact that the government cannot create a crime just to be the ones to stop it. And I totally get it, because it's hard to hear things like that the dude is fine with children being blown to bits or, my entire family being killed. But he was a teenager whose own family was concerned that he was going to be susceptible to brainwashing. A teenager whose family's life had fallen apart and he was lost. I think it's important to play devil's advocate here to recognize where an overreach may have taken place. Would Muhammad have continued to reach out to potentially dangerous people? Maybe. Would he have gone to Yemen and joined a terrorist organization? There's no telling. But this isn't Minority Report, and I can think of a lot of distraught teenagers that, if approached by an older, dignified person that started to push them in a certain direction, they would totally go for it. It only took 7 hours for the jury to return with a guilty verdict. Muhammad was then sentenced to 30 years. In 2015, Muhammad's lawyers filed a suit. This gets really complicated, and while it is important, I don't want to bore you to the point that you doze off and drive off the road. In a nutshell, Edward Snowden released the documents about illegal American surveillance. Muhammad's lawyers felt that his surveillance had not been warranted and therefore fell under the FAA Act. While the case did make it to the Ninth Circuit courts, the case and supplemental appeal were denied. As for my family, it wasn't until the next day when we saw the headline on the papers, we still had them back then, that we even knew that sort of, but not really close, we had been to being in danger.
So there was no, disruption at the tree lighting?
There was nothing. We had no idea.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And, a fun little lighthearted side note for being Christmas. My family, we're kind of known local celebrities for our Christmas cards, which are usually funny pictures summing up the year or
I never got one.
Poem or parody song. You'll get on the list some year. In 2010, we didn't really have any other choice than to use the picture from the newspaper, as you could see all of us in it with the big headline of terrorism plot or
Nice.
something like that. So, we of course used that picture and captioned it, "Hope your holidays are a blast," because life is short and you have to laugh at the bad stuff. Everyone loved it. It was great.
My face is aghast right now, everyone.
All in all, this case isn't about me turning the perpetrator into the victim. He did push the button, and he pushed it twice. He did help in those plans, and he followed through with what would have been a devastating attack on my city. However, he was a kid. He was 19, and his brain was not fully developed. He was young and struggling and looking to find himself and, his people, per se.
I do kind of see him as a victim, and I know that might not be something people want to hear, but if you look at other cases where someone who's suicidal is pushed by a loved one to, why don't you do this? Why don't you pick this day? Why don't you go kill yourself?
Right.
And they follow through with it.
Yes.
They go to jail. Mm-hmm. So people in power giving him the tools he needs to put this picture together and follow through with it. Seems to me like there are other people involved in that fault.
Well, especially after that first meeting where there weren't, where there's no recording, because to go from, "Hey man, be careful what you're saying online," and yeah, I would love to talk to you about poems. And the poems weren't like violent or anything. It wasn't like, after, it's
just very religious.
He's very religious and protective of that religion. And to go from like, "Yeah, be careful what you say. Why don't you come to my church? Okay, I'll meet you at this coffee shop at the hotel." And then to have him come out of that meeting where there's no documentation, now he's like looking for places to set off a car bomb.
Yeah.
It's
like very
like
questionable. And other people should be held accountable for that. Like, I realize he followed through and that's wrong. Mm-hmm. But would he have ever done that
exactly
had they not been involved?
Exactly.
We don't know.
And how many, and also the resources. There are people that are actively on their own buying huge stocks of weapons and buying things like,
yeah, why him? Why is he singled out?
right? Like, why aren't you looking at these guys that own like 87 Uzis and it's like that kind of like where they're on their own doing things that are a little bit like, hey, let's keep an eye on this, as opposed to just setting this thing up to be like, look, we got this guy. So yeah, not having that first recording and just, he's 19. And
this seems really inappropriate.
Yeah. All of
and
it
again,
is,
he did something wrong and he
Yes.
should be punished for that. But 30 years to someone who followed through on a plan that they knew wasn't going to happen is a little weird to me, when people go away for shorter time for like actually planning out murders. Right. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, side note, there is an episode of Veronica Mars that is essentially this plot.
Oh, how interesting. Well, and also too, you have to realize this was 10 years ago. So, it's post 9/11, but it's, still only 2010.
Yeah.
So we're still like heat of the war, heat of his name's Muhammad and he's brown and he's from another country and he, all these things
there
that
are a lot of
automatically
elements.
We're already like targeting you. But yeah, it's just it blows my mind. Oh, and the first, again, this BuzzFeed article that had everything really detailed. The first agent that reached out, that emailed him, that was not even asked. Like, no one asked him to do that. And then
he
later,
just went on a hunt himself
in trial, because like, the paths crossed about meeting up and everything. And it was like, in court, they were like, well, who asked you to do that? He's like, well, no, his email popped up in my like,
I just
radar
feel
thing.
like they are sitting around back patting each other for getting this kid who followed through on this plan, when it probably never would have happened had they not done something they shouldn't have.
I really don't. I mean, obviously, I can't speak. I don't know him as a person, and if he was capable of pushing the button, he was capable of pushing it.
Yeah,
and he did.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's like he literally said, "I feel lost. I just need some support and soft words."
And here somebody comes swooping in with all the answers.
Mm-hmm. And that email, that response, that was the one where they're like, "Well, no, I mean, I know no one told me to," and they're like, "Well, why did that?" Like,
to me, this is just a question of morals, and I believe that the FBI was at a major fault with that.
Yeah, and also, like, is this what you're doing with our money? Like, can you not, like,
turn people into killers.
There aren't bigger fish to fry than spend a year. They spent a year, and who knows how many
That's
agents.
manipulation. And I mean, you again, going back to like a suicidal person
Yeah.
and grooming them for months to go and finally kill themselves.
Yep.
How is that different?
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like the FBI went hand over hand on pushing the button. Like, we're here.
Yeah, they were there.
We've got you. Like,
it makes you question what kind of people are running our security.
yep.
That's very scary.
Yeah. So I totally agree. And it feels weird because, I mean, literally the next day it was one of those things where it's like, oh.
Well, it's like I'm right there in the middle. Like, yeah, we don't
Yeah.
want bombies. We don't want people killed. But I
Obviously.
also don't want people having their brains manipulated into doing bad things.
And if it hadn't been agents and it had been people that were wanting to cause terror and
then we put them all away.
But if they did the same thing, but they actually built the bomb and it killed me and my family and everyone I know and love, then yeah, fry them. Like, it, you know, my
think
opinion
about
would
that
be
for a
so
second.
different.
How are the FBI agents being any different than like a cell leader
Exactly.
grooming people
Exactly.
to do their bidding?
And they
It's
only
Terrorism here on our own soil by people in power.
Yes. Ooh, yes. Ooh, that gave me chills. Yes.
I'm just like really riled up about that. I
and the
feel
fact-
very sad for him, but
Yeah.
also like angry that he'd be willing to do that. But
And the
more
only
sad.
reason, and the fact that the only reason the FBI even knew of his existence was because the dad asked for help because he was worried about him being easily manipulated and going to these countries where
Can't
he
imagine how he's feeling.
right. That's the only reason he's on the radar. Yeah,
Wow.
it's all very upsetting. So
Merry
you know, yeah,
effing
Merry
Christmas.
All in all, moral of the story, don't just take actions, especially those by would-be terrorists or any extreme group, without a grain of salt or at least looking through the court records or a thorough BuzzFeed article before deciding that you know everything there is to know about a case. I hope it goes without saying that this case was chosen as it literally hits so close to home, and I found the backstory fascinating. There is no commentary here on immigrants, Muslims, anything like that, so don't even bring it to the table.
Don't even go there.
So happy holidays, okay?
Happy holidays.
And a special shout out to the Christmas tree lighting, to Brenda Braxton and the Von Trapp family. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
I'm going to wear my curtains.
What?
On Trap Family.
I don't.
Curtains turned into clothing.
Oh, I don't know.
Everyone else
anything
will get
about
it.
That. Oh, I only know them from the Christmas tree lighting. It's like the grandkids or whatever.
The Sound of Music. I'm just saying. She also tells the 911 dispatcher who lives. Oh my gosh. I'm like getting excited again. When police arrived, Judy's friend Laura. No. Ich bin spreche Deutsch. Ich spreche Deutsch.
Mother.
Mother. Didn't cry when I wrote it.
How dare you have feelings?
You're disgusting to us.
After the massacre, the couple drove to the No, this is going to be a hard one. Hold on. Stillaguamish, who were both arrested for aggregated murder.
No.
Aggravated. I do that every time.
Aggregated murder. By their murder.
Who were both arrested for aggravated murder. Many things came to light. Oh my God.
Sorry, got a little tickle.
Joseph takes the stand at trial and he paints a picture of a childhood that persists. Which article?
If you're in my sources, go to the BuzzFeed one, the second from the bottom.
Got it.
Starting out by talking about that
Cookie,
article.
come here.
Cookie bear, cookie bear, cookie dough.
You big bottom, beautiful baby.
Was that a dog?
He bit me real hard.
Oh,
No,
I
you were
heard a
glaring.
fart.
yeah,
No.
Fargert?
And yours might as well. Today, I just heard your bra strap.
Sorry. My
Slap.
shirt is like crooked.
$5 on Patreon, right?
I'll take my bra off.
On August 11th, 1991. I killed a dog with my hand.
Get the
With my hand.
Just one.
That's all it would take.
Just a little slap like a bug.
One fist. Where's Busy Bee?
We can't do anything without Busy Bee.
Henry, you are not a good dog. You're not a bad dog. You're poorly behaved. He's running in circles around the coffee table, barking at Boku.
Stop barking at Boku.
We're done.
She killed him. He's dead. He's dead now. He's gone full asshole today. Oh, that's very cute the way he's sitting right now. That's great.
Like he's got little puppy hemorrhoids.
Yeah.
Little donut.
My tiny butthole is sore. I was talking about mine.
Henry, get your hair tie and just shut the fuck up. Okay?
Tiny and it hurts. Don't eat that paper.
Shh. We can. He'll probably just whine.
It's like any takers. I'll fuck with anybody. Wow. What a dog.
What an expensive dog.
Expensive annoyance.
Look at these hard ceilings.
You're probably more of a big dog person.
Yep.
So you won't smother them. She really looked like she wanted to squeeze him. Like a lot.
A little mice and men situation.
Mm-hmm.
My mouth didn't open all the way as I said quote, so it went quote.
It's like a queef.
A mouth queef.
K-A-Y.
K-A-R.
KY.
Joy Charlie.
What the fuck?
That's Alicia's pubes. Full bristle.
Strong like straw.
They stand up like porcupine things. Quills.
Quills.
Okay.
Yes. I got it.
I found it.
Went to high school.
Was known for being all bark and no bite. He liked.
My phone fell on the ground. I'm sorry. Sorry. I feel like the wheels are really coming off the
It's
wagon
really
today.
just
I'm very
falling
sorry.
Okay, I'm getting the names mixed up. My bad.
Yeah, you're bad.
I'm naughty.
You're
I'm a
so
bad
naughty.
girl. I'm
You're
bad.
getting cold.
What are you do about it?
Santa's gonna spank you.
Oh. Not door.
Dorm.
Yes, but I didn't finish.
Dar.
Dar.
Just
We
say-
could just edit
say,
it in. Dorm.
I'll try.
Dar.
And then you get a computer voice. Dorm.
And then
that
everyone
will
writes us
scream.
about us going, what is that? Why weren't there bloopers?
Why didn't you tell us about that? It scared me.
And seemed jovial, contrary to her. Fuck.
It's a new one.
Started to lead us through Christmas. So, in a nutshell, Edward Snowden. So, all in all, the moral of the story is, what?
I know. I just am saying I would wear my curtains there.
It's a good joke.
I just met a girl named Maria, and suddenly it seems
That's all I know.
that I
Emma. Horny.
nothing will be the same today. Well, right, that's it. Let's have some cookies.
I'm gonna back you guys up with some scatting.
Oh my God, yes. During the musical break, yes, please.
Skibidi-bap-bow.
In our Pacific Northwest, Pacific Northwest, in our Pacific Northwest, Wonderland.
The song is starting. You guys just start singing. I have to go take a poo.
I have to poo.
I mean, he can go in there with me, but that seems weird.
Train bells ring. Are you listening? In the meadow, we can build a snow person and pretend that they are a suspect. Wonderland. So good, except for that little growl. You little.
We'll do it one more time.
Face.
It's gonna be perfect.
Okay.
Mind to mind. Mind to mind.
With snow-covered hikes and brewery-filled nights in a Pacific Northwest Wonderland.
was it? What was he even barking at?
Literally the song.
You're a twat.
Fuck you, Henry.
Just let him loose outside. Josh, solo.
Scooby Dooby Doo Bop Bow.
Just a little flute and doo
Jingle bells.
Oh, yeah.
Murder in the Rain is produced and edited by Josh McCullough. Written and hosted by Emily Rowney and Alicia Holland. Artwork by Jamie Costa. Music by Kai Pfeiffer at kyfifer.com. Check out our website, murderintherain.com, for additional information on all cases, a fun interactive map, and be sure to subscribe so you can receive our newsletter. Check out the Mad Props page for coupon codes from some of our sponsors. We love your reviews and seeing them on all streaming platforms, especially iTunes. And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And suck my balls.
Please put that in.